It's been kind of nice though, because we've had some of our high school kids been able to work a little bit more.
Well, that's good.
All right, seeing that we have a quorum, go ahead and call the meeting to order. I see that Father Metz is here to offer a prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings of this day. Ask your guidance upon us as we gather for this meeting. May everything we do begin with your inspiration, continue with your help, so that all our prayers and works may begin in you and by you be happily ended. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Join the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem Lambert and members, and commissioners. Mayor Hash is, I think, traveling with her family this week, unable to be here. On the dais up there, you probably passed it around already, for your signatures, if you would please, a letter of appreciation to the Lions Club for their efforts at the cemetery. As you mentioned last week, it'd be good to do that. So that's what that's for. Would like to add an additional brief executive session for non-elected personnel on top of the two others on the agenda. There are no other changes to the agenda. You'll notice very light this week, depending how much Brad talks and how much I talk. We could be out. I know we all want to be home in time for the debate.
So there will be 3 executive sessions? Okay.
There's a debate tonight?
I don't think they're calling it that anymore.
Soap opera.
SNL.
12 rounds. Actually, my daughter's 23 today, so we're having a birthday party at El Porto so they can put whipped cream on her nails.
Move on to the approval of the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for October 5th, 2016 meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to financial matters, the appropriation ordinance 19.
Yeah, check number 63702 to WPS, an overpayment of $678.45. What's WPS?
That's Medicare. It was they said that they paid us too much, and so we had to pay it back. However, she's fighting that to try to get it back still.
Okay.
Ambulance billing for it.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's part of it. It's
So
all
basically,
paid.
yeah, they just, Medicare paid us, and I think that they paid us too much, and it should have went to a different insurance or something
Okay.
first.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Amber.
I'll move to approve appropriation ordinance 19.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Pounds and seconded by Commissioner Sacco to approve appropriation ordinance 19. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Would open the floor now to public comments. Anyone? Bueller? Okay.
Get on quickly.
This time we'll close public comments and move forward with new business.
Arlene's not here.
Airport planning.
Hello, Brad Waller from Alfred Venison Company. Glad to be back. I'm kind of fighting, I don't want to say cold or allergy or something, so I'm kind of talking a little froggy here. So, so hopefully you can understand and hear me. If you have any questions, we go, let me know. Just wanted to come in. Basically, I kind of we're at a kind of a, I don't want to say a stopping point, but just kind of a rest point with the airport. and have a chance to talk to you about where we're at, where we're going to go, and maybe get a little feedback, maybe a little dialogue. I know at the end Steve Richards may have a comment or two. He's the chair of the Airport Advisory Board, so who's running me here?
Oh,
Oh, there you go. Thank you. But go real quick, talk about some economics of Kansas and then the airport, why it's important. Talk about the master plan update, and the next steps. Okay, would you next one, please? Basically, at the FA 4-State Regional Conference in, I'm kind of pausing there because that wasn't my opening slide, so I'm hoping this is the right PowerPoint that I sent. Would you fast forward a couple, please? Go. Yeah. Okay, looks good enough. Okay, go back. I just make sure we're on the right one. Yeah, it's the right airport, right? We're Concordia.
Instilling a lot of confidence, right?
Yeah, I'm glad. That's what I do. No, at the 4-State Region Conference, KDOT Aviation put together a presentation. Long story short, that I just want to highlight real quick is on the left there. The entire state of Kansas, the aviation, it results in a $13.5 billion economic activity to the state of Kansas. We are the single largest state producer in the nation as far as economic activity. A lot of that is due to Cessna, Boeing, around the Wichita area, all that. The other fact is Kansas's biggest crop, or biggest export is crops. We do a lot of aerial spray ag applications, taking care of those crops and the output there. So that's where a lot of it comes from. But it does create an account for a lot of jobs. So again, looking at a lot of economic input into the state. If you look at that on a whole, it is roughly 8 to 10% of the state's actual export. Yes, it is quite large. I think it's the third largest. Please. I want to focus back then on a study that KDOT commissioned in 2010, and this looked at economic impact not only in the state of Kansas, but a regional or each airport individually. In the top left, I just talked about 13.5 billion. That's this year's numbers. In 2010, their numbers were 10.4 billion. So you can kind of see it has increased over the past few years, but that's kind of given a relate. But the reason I bring this up from a few years ago is on the right there, talking about Blosh Municipal Airport. This was a commissioned study by I don't want to say a private consultant, but an independent consultant to look at the state of Kansas as a whole. And these were the numbers they came back with. Direct impacts of Blosh Municipal Airport, again, this is 2010, on a yearly basis is $180,000, with an indirect impact from that dollar amount of another $90,000 almost. That basically of $270,000 or so. When you come back and look at the secondary impacts, looking, as you go through the economy or economics, every dollar spent locally is then spent again, and then spent again, and that sort of thing. So when you look at the second round impacts, that's that second line, and it's kind of hard to read. That total of $270,000 then generates another $166,000. That's spending on local restaurants, gas, wages, what have you. That then could be a total output of 8 jobs for the City of Concordia Airport, or Blosh Municipal, with a payroll of $134,000, or total economic impact of about $440,000. It's a decent sized business. I guess I want to point out that there's a lot going on with the airport, a lot of economic impact, a lot of positivity of the airport, in addition to the businesses that operate there on a daily basis. I get a lot of questions sometimes, or a lot of weird looks when I talk about this slide, because I do talk about it in a lot of different communities I go to. The jobs and the dollar impact, everybody kind of goes, wow, there's no way that our airport does that. And if I can go to the next slide, please. It really focuses, like I said earlier, on the ag spray applications. You do have aerial ag service out there that Brian Donovan runs. It is one of the big generators of dollars at the airport. In addition to that, on the airport business, you do rent the hangars out, and you do have fuel sales. So those are economic inputs into the airport. It also benefits the airport with the medical community, not only with Cloud County Health Center and the life flights and being able to bring the doctors in and out on a weekly or monthly basis. We also have the life flight services. So if there is heaven forbid, a need for an emergency, we can get Eagle Med or Life Flight in and out of that airport. That's a very big deal when it comes to particularly KDOT aviation and trying to get everybody in the state of Kansas within a half hour of a critical service airport. A little further, a little expansion on that, there's the golden hour that's discussed in the medical community. That's from the instance of the impact of whatever happened to getting that critical care. And if you can do it within that first hour, your chances of survival go up dramatically. And the goal is to give it a half hour, so accident happens, heart attack happens, whatever, they can get you that critical aircraft and get you up in the air and get you going to where you need to go, which is critical for rural communities, western Kansas, and especially one with an aging population, where we're going to see hopefully, or likely see more issues where that would come into play. Recreation, there are pilots that just own planes out there that fly for recreational purposes in addition to all the economic development that may be going in. There's also a fly-in on a yearly basis and things that go on at the airport. So there's lots of positive activity at the airport. It's not just a couple people that use it. It's not out there just for people to have fun at. It is bringing in economic dollars and generating business and generating economic activity to this community.
How many planes are stored out there?
I have it in my master plan up your head. 15? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. 15 to 20 was what I was gonna say.
It's pretty well full, isn't it?
Yeah, the hangars are full, and that's one of the things I'll get into maybe later is potential new hangar space would be beneficial at the airport. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I have no means to.
Steve, are all the hangars about the size of yours then, or
No,
some?
the T hangars are somewhat smaller.
Okay.
We got the 3 larger hangars to the south, and then the T hangars to the north are smaller.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
But recently, over the past 6 or 7 years, just to give you a little roadmap of how we've got to here. In 2010, these are approximate dates, we completed the master plan, which is the roadmap of how we got to where we're going with the projects. Based upon that, we did the taxiway and apron construction. There's a picture of it in the corner there. Really improved the condition of the pavement in that area. If you remember, we're out there, it was some very deteriorated asphalt and it was pretty small. It gave more parking area. And more importantly, in the bottom right of that picture is where the fueling area is. And if a plane was, you can see the old concrete and everything above it there is new. So when there was a plane that was in there fueling, you had no way to get around and get to the terminal hangar building or the 3 hangars to the south. So that provided a nice benefit of extra space out there. Following the master plan, one of the things identified is a runway, a new runway and a larger runway. And I'll get into that in just a minute. But a step taken towards that is environmental assessment that was completed in 2013 that looks at all impacts of all construction, primarily the runway, but all new construction at the airport. Following approval of that, we did commence land acquisition. It took 3 or 4 years or so. We acquired over 10 properties and have completed that. I didn't bring that to go into huge detail because I think hopefully you've got somewhat familiar with that. But basically what it is, we acquired properties for both the primary runway, the new proposed runway, and a potential new crosswind runway, at least protecting the approaches and the airspace. And that is all acquired and done and taken care of. And then recently we completed the mill and overlay project. And I say completed, it is done, substantially complete. The only thing outstanding is we have to wait 30 days for asphalt cure time to do a final application of pavement markings. So if you go out there now, there's a temporary application. It's kind of thin. It doesn't look that great because it's only about a 20-25% application rate. But 1st of November or so, they'll be coming back in and completing the rest of that, and that project will be done. Done with no major overruns, no issues whatsoever as far as budget. So I'm proud to report that. Now, all of those projects, they obviously do cost money. And I want to basically pass on how that's done because I can tell you right now that at this airport, pretty much every airport of a community your size, I've only done maybe one project in 15 years that was totally locally funded, okay? All of that money is coming from FAA or KDOT, okay? So when we're talking these nice improvement projects, they're coming from somewhere else. There's 2 pools of funding, FAA and KDOT. FAA does provide you, and let me caveat this by saying this is their current plan. It's been in place for 15 years or so. There's nothing to say that Uncle Sam may decide next year to quit it or alter it or change it. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying there's even talk it's going to happen, but I'm just saying that's the way it is right now. But you get $150,000 a year, and it's banked for up to 4 years for up to $600,000 total. If you don't use it in that time, you'll lose it. Okay. That is given to the community at a 90% match. So you only have to put up 10% to obtain those funding. And it has to be on projects that are on the approved master plan. That means you can't just decide you want to go build a new runway on a brand new alignment or something like that. You have to do what's in there per the roadmap. So with the recent land acquisition that was finalized this spring, we basically brought the funds down to about $250,000. 1st of October was the FAA fiscal year start. So we just got our new $150,000. That puts us at about $400,000 of funding that FAA has. It's not like it's sitting in a bank waiting for you to go. We just say it's banked. We do have to work with them to make sure they have it all in one year. For instance, if every airport tried to use their entire allotment right now, they wouldn't have enough available type of thing. But what's going to happen then is, right now, like I said, we're kind of at a soft spot here. We don't have any plans to do any work at the airport really over the next probably 12 months. Okay, unless something comes up or something crazy happens and we need to get going, but I imagine nothing's going to happen for 12 months or so, which is why we're here to talk about it, get some groundwork going. A year from now, we get another $150,000. That'll put your entitlement up to $550,000. Okay. This time next year, we need to discuss we don't need to discuss. If we don't do a project in FY18, which is roughly starting a year from now, really next spring of 2018, this community will lose or forfeit. I put up there 50, but it's $100,000.
Brad, is the federal fiscal year start July 1?
The FA fiscal year is October 1. October 1. October 1 to September 30th. So again, next year we'll have about $550,000 to use towards a project. You don't have to use it all. You can use part of it, whatever it is. If we don't do a project where FAA would match 90% of their dollars of about $100,000 to utilize that, that money will then go away. It goes back into their pool and it'll get redistributed somewhere else in the country. Okay. And I said, I'm not saying you have to use it. It's not written in stone or whatever, but it's an opportunity that could be potentially lost if we're not planning ahead. So I want to bring that out there as we talk about later. In addition to that, FAA does have then a discretionary pool. It's how you do larger projects. For instance, if you're going to do the new runway, if I have $5.5, $6 million or whatever size the project might be, it's a competitive based, again, 90-10 match. The other pool of funding we utilize a lot is KDOT, and again, that is on a competitive match. And it is done on a 90-10 split. And I say at most projects, about 90% of the projects, it would be 90-10. The only ones that aren't are equipment type projects. Those are 50-50 if you do, purchase a piece of equipment like snow removal or something like that. The submission deadline was just a couple weeks ago, and they'll make a selection around February. We did not submit for anything for this year. So any projects that we've done in the past and everything we're talking here in the future is going to come from this. Okay, we're not going to come and try and ask for 100% funding from this community at this point in time. So as we're discussing these, maybe keep that in mind. Any questions?
We lose 50,000 a year and receive 150,000. How much could we eventually bank with that scenario? I mean, 100,000 a year till we get $1 million, and then we could do a $10 million project,
It's
or what?
600,000 max. It's 4 years.
600,000 max.
This
Okay.
is money that we have to match. This is not our match.
This is, yeah. So basically, every 4 years, you can do a project of quote unquote $660,000. That's $600,000 from FAA with 90% match
Sure.
and a 10% load. Now, what I say is there's 400,000 now, and what that means, and again, I mistyped the 50,000. That should say 100,000
So you lose 100,000.
because 100,000 is from 2 years ago. There's which was 150, but because we used 50,000 of it, it's down to 100. There's 150,000 from last year and 150,000 now. That's your 400,000. Next year, we'll get the next 150 to be 550 total. And if you don't use that in that 4-year period, that 100,000 from quote unquote 4 years ago goes away. So the next year, if we don't do anything next year and the following year, which would be 2019, you don't do anything, you would lose that 150, and so on and so
Okay.
forth.
Do you have to use the whole amount? Or do you, if you use, say, 100,000 on a project, and then does it continue to go on then? We don't lose anything?
You would be, well, if you only used 100,000 next year, then the following year we'd be in danger of the 150 again.
Okay.
It's basically whatever project we do, it's taken from the oldest time forward and wiped away. or
Like
however-
way, and then it moves
Yeah.
again to another 4 years.
So for instance, if next year we've got 550 banked and we did a project for 300,000, that would bring you down to 250, which would give you another 2 years of time till that would build up
Okay, okay.
How much should we spend on the overlay that we just did, Brad?
to roughly 200,000 or so.
Okay.
Right, Ron? Was that next year? No. Oh, that was what the grant was. You're right. I'm sorry. I mixed it with the grant. It's 360. I'm sorry.
It's 360.
And
Was
that came from KDOT.
Okay. And we
That
just
was a
matched
KDOT
it.
granted project.
Okay.
So it did not come out and subtract from that 600,000 we're talking about. That's why KDOT is a nice thing, because potentially both pots will fund similar or the same projects, but there is some, I don't want to say gamesmanship, but there's some opportunity to try and get KDOT to participate in projects to bump some of yours up further on the FAA side, if you want to be aggressive about it and maximize funding. Okay. Okay, real quick, I'll try and go through this. There's a lot of information. I'm gonna try and go real quick of the master plan, because the master plan process took a couple of years. Basically, there's an existing runway out there today. It's the runway, an asphalt runway we just repaved. It's classified as a B1 airport, or B1 aircraft. For lack of a better term, basically it's a length of 3,600 feet, a width of 60 feet, 8,000 pounds is what it can accommodate of the size of aircraft. And on the end there, I put a distance to buildings of 445 feet, and that's going to come into play here in a minute. Once we got done with the entire master plan of looking at what you have, forecast, population estimates, plane estimates, I mean a whole bunch of rigmarole that went through this, it was identified that the design aircraft is the Beach King Air B200. The airport board approved it at the time, the city commission approved it at the time, and FAA approved that. So from that information, that design aircraft and that size of aircraft is a B2. So we look at B2 runway requirements to accommodate what we project is going to be happening at this airport, or what would accommodate this airport. That generated a length of runway of 4,800 feet, a width of 75 feet, and a pavement strength of 30,000 pounds. Okay. So basically what we're saying is the runway as it sits today is insufficient for the planning horizon of the next 10 to 20 years for what could be used at this airport.
How many people does like a B-2 jet hold?
They vary, and I want to hesitate on that a lot, because there's so many type of aircraft that fit in it. The classifications go from A, B, C, D, which is your tail height and wingspan. Okay, so it's a size, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 is your landing speed, landing velocity as it comes in. So an A1 is spray plane type pilots, where they can, they only need a couple hundred feet to take off, that type of thing. Your D4s are Kansas City's, LAX's, the large stuff. So the bigger you get on both of those, the bigger it comes. So I hesitate to say a number, but usually it can be either a 2-passenger. You can get some small jet traffic in there that can probably be 6 to 8, maybe 10 passenger. So, but you're talking from pretty small aircraft, not a lot of jet aircraft. It's going to be mostly propeller-driven aircraft.
And when was these projections made?
2010, I believe they were finalized.
I'd be interested to hear what they projected as far as the growth and everything to come up with this.
Okay.
This,
Well, I brought a copy of my book. I know it's on file, and we have copies around. Every commissioner time was given one, and I know the city's got several
Yes, sir.
finalized adopted copies. Yeah, it's
it's
It's about that big.
I just want the part that tells about what growth's coming in to justify the airports.
yeah, we can.
Copies of
Yeah.
you're talking about the underlying financial and demographic assumptions that.
Yeah, I'm looking for the growth
Sure.
assumptions.
And that's
what I'm
chapter
looking
2,
for.
if you want to, where we talk about that. So, and then again, the distance to buildings increases by 50 foot if you go to large. Basically, a bigger aircraft need more safety area in case something goes wrong. Kind of like if you're driving on a highway, rural counties are narrower, bigger slopes, bigger ditches. You get on I-70 or out here, it's a lot wider, more forgiving. Okay, next slide. Oop. That wasn't what I did? Oh. Okay, so this is a little hard to, and maybe if I'll just walk up here, because it's probably easier. There you go. Green button. That produces a red dot. Gotcha. Okay, this is the copy of one sheet of the master plan document. And again, I'm just trying to walk you through the steps to get to the runway, because that's kind of the big elephant in the room right now is this runway. The existing runway end is right here. It's kind of a hatch pavement, and it runs right through here, and there's the other end of the runway. That's the existing runway as it sits today. What you see up here is the new runway in a little bit of darker hatch. Again, a darker hatch in here. And then darker hatches down here signify new pavement or expansion of the airport or locations for aircraft hangars, that sort of thing. And like I said, I can get into minutia on all this different stuff, and I want to keep this as brief as possible. So we looked at 4 different alternatives for a runway that would meet the criteria and fit at this airport. And they involve the existing alignment, a different alignment, different ends, that type of thing. And once we vetted through all that based upon cost estimates, and that includes land acquisition, the ideal alternative was basically to build this new runway on an offset alignment to the east of the existing runway. The ability that gave us then is it afforded this runway and the pavement that's there, because it was only 8,000 pounds for landing, it was rated okay for a taxiway. So what we have is we have a built-in parallel taxiway by doing this. So instead of going in and taking taking money to tear out the runway and redo all that and redo it, and you have just a runway, it is actually the same amount or probably less money to do a brand new one right there and keep the taxiway, or keep the runway as a taxiway. That was one of the big reasons. The other big reason is when we go from a B1 to a B2 aircraft, looking at some of this more small jet or larger aircraft, the separation that FAA requires from the center line of runway to existing buildings is roughly right now right at those face of buildings. And if we were to take that runway and try and step it up to a longer, wider runway, those buildings are in the way. Yeah, go figure. So basically where we were at with FAA was you can keep the runway as it sits right now, the same length and the same width, and just stand pat. But if you want to grow and do a bigger runway that can accommodate more, it probably needs to move, or the buildings would have needed to move. So again, at the time it was saying, if we're visualizing growth of the airport and the opportunity, and I want to say at the time that was in the master plan was delayed by a year, because it was at that time that the hospital was in heavy discussions to go locate right here. Okay, that was one of the big drivers of a potential new runway 2. Okay, so those were the big things. I can go into a lot more on that, but I think that's kind of the detail of enough to get us going. Amber, would you go to the next one, please? Again, the positives of that alignment. It was the most cost-effective of the evaluated options. The runway would stay open at all times. We're not tearing it up and redoing it where the airport's closed for 6 months. It gets into, again, Brian Donovan's business and that sort of thing. They can stay open, they can work. Existing pavement was a parallel taxiway. We didn't have to move any buildings. And it did actually help with approaches. We got a little further away from the highway and a little further away from some businesses and buildings by about 400 feet. So it did help us with some clear zone and approaches. Now, a little bit of different, and Steve asked me to present this and maybe give just a little understanding of where Concordia is in comparison. I looked at 100 general aviation airports. I shouldn't say 100. I looked at all of the general aviation airports in Kansas. I threw out the Manhattan and Dodge City and Salina and all those. And I threw out the ones that just had turf runways that weren't competitive. And there's actually exactly 100. Concordia's length was number 65 out of 100 at 3,600 feet. The average runway length is 4,200 feet, which, and just to give you some reference, the bottom 10 are roughly less than 3,000. I'm not going to read the names to you, but you can kind of see the type, size, whatever cities have some smaller ones. And then the top 10 is obviously some pretty large ones. When you're getting into Great Bend, Hutch, Newton, some of those are some older Army airport type bases where they did have some longer ones. They were kind of inherited a very nice situation, so they kind of maintained those.
What kind of airline or what kind of plane would that support, with that A, B, C, D?
A 7,000 would be probably a C2.
Okay,
Manhattan is a 7,000, and it gets this Embraer regional jet, which
Okay.
is a 48 passenger, 42, something like that, whatever it is. But it is a jet. It's the jet service that you'll see there.
okay.
And their crosswind at Manhattan, I think, is 5,200. I think it's right at a mile, and they won't land that on there. So that kind of maybe gives you an idea. Of
They
where
won't
we're
or they can't?
They won't.
Okay.
They could.
If they,
They
okay.
could if they had to, but they won't. The next two slides are just comparing. Ooh, it lost its alignment there. But anyways, the next two slides, I just want to compare cities of similar size. I went on the census data, the most recent that's out there, and right around Concordia, I put the 4 on either side of the cities with their population that were that were closest to Concordia and had a runway right there. I'm not trying to imply anything here. I'm just trying to show you, give you a representation of maybe what some other comparative type communities would have. Okay. So most of them are, I would say, larger or longer in size. And then I looked at it on a regional comparison, and again, for some reason, it lost its thing. But Abilene, Belleville, and Beloit, well, Beloit just lengthened their runway to 4,200 feet. And Clay Center does have a plan to lengthen theirs to 4,800. Ellsworth is in the moment right now looking to increase theirs to 4,800, I believe. And then we did Washington County several years ago, and that's going to be a smaller county airport. But just to give you an idea of the ones that are within this, 45-minute drive range is just kind of what you're dealing with, where you are status quo with some of the other airports. When you're looking at some business opportunities, you are theoretically competing potentially with some of those. I know with Cloud Corp, they've worked to bring in some businesses that rely upon some airport connectivity. So, again, I guess it lost its formatting, but so second to last slide here, looking at potential projects, which is the reason that we're kind of wanting to update you on where we're at. We've completed kind of the list of projects where we kind of are. We have some funding that's next year we need to start looking at using or going to expire, and the big question is going to be, are we going to pursue the runway or not? The land's there, the environmental's there, it's basically ready to start design and then construction. That project is probably going to be in the $5 to $6 million range. Okay? So when you bring that back to local terms, again, it'd be 10% because we're not going to do this without FA funding. There's no way, no how. So you're looking at probably $500,000 to $600,000 of local funding, and it's not going to happen next year. I mean, what may happen is we may start design next year, so a few $100,000 design project next year, bid the project, get it started construction in 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there, where that will be the big expense. So my point being is we got some time here where it would come in, it wouldn't just hit right now or next year.
Okay, construction on the new runway, that cost. And it says, or, if we do construct the new runway, would we still need to do those bottom things? So, I mean, our total cost would be much greater?
No. Well, and here's where we're at, is we've got, again, now the potential project funding expiring, okay? I think the airport board, aviation community, I mean, everybody, and I'm your airport consultant, so I'm here to say, the best thing to do would be to build a new runway. Understanding the financial and all the difficulties with that. That decision needs to be made. If we don't go forward with that runway, there are other projects where we could put money into the airport that would provide a valuable bang for the buck. Okay. For instance, the lighting of the existing runway, I think we looked at this in the 1960s. It's like 50 to 60 years old. I mean, it's old and it's in bad shape. That's the existing runway. The reason we haven't touched it as a project is because we're planning to do the new runway. So why sink the cost in to do that on an existing when you're looking at doing a new? So if for whatever reason that new runway is identified or kind of continues to get pushed out and has not become a priority, then probably the number one priority is putting lights on that existing runway. So that's why I put or. And that's where maybe next year that would come into play. Now, the other project identified would happen in addition to potentially. I mean, a new fuel system has been identified as a good need for the airport. Whether you did the runway or not, that would still be identified as a need. And I highlighted that in red again, talked about that's a KDOT funding option. That's one of those that they fund. They would fund all of those projects up there, but they're so competitive that you have to kind of be, I don't want to say be careful, but you want to strategically go after ones that can get selected. So if we're trying to maximize dollars or grant dollars for the airport, we would try, my recommendation would be to go after KDOT grant funding for the fuel facility for the next year, and then not this year. Then if you're not selected, go again. If you're not selected, go again until you get it, and put your FAA money into the other ones, even though FAA would potentially pay for that. We also talked about new T hangars. Again, they're full up right now. That would be a good investment. And I can tell you that every airport I talk to, that's one of their primary goals is new hangars. Everybody wants hangars. Everybody can fill them. So that's a good opportunity for a project. We could expand the apron. We talked about where it's at now. There's just minimal tie-down locations. That's a project that's out there that could be beneficial to the airport. The parking lot and drive would be nice to, clean up, make it look a little better, a little nicer, but that's out there. It's a possible project. And we did talk about a snow removal for the tractor basically that could take away snow removal. And then what some communities are doing with that is then buying a mower attachment, so it can be used as a mower too. FAA won't participate in the mower attachment for whatever reason,
But realistically, as Lau pointed out, we put in the longer runway to bring in light jets. And then it just goes without saying that put in a new runway, we're gonna need new runway lights. We're gonna need new hangars. We're gonna need expanded apron. We're gonna need a stall removal. Otherwise, why put in the long hangar? So there's two ways we could actually look at it. We could look at doing the accessories first, which we're gonna need if we go to the airport, the extended, and then go to the extended runway. And then that also give us a chance to, another time to bring in more business with the understanding you come in and you need we'll put that there, we'll build you your extended, and we'd have the accessories to go with it. Because to spend the 5.5 and get a new runway, and then not have any money to put the lights in and the hangars and the whole thing, seems like a waste of time.
Understood, and I'm not gonna argue that that's the wrong way to look at it. The 5.5 covers the pavement, the grading, the lighting, and everything with the runway.
Yeah.
So don't confuse that new runway lights. If that were to be built, those runway lights would go away because we'd cover it with that. I mean, obviously we wouldn't like. But you're right, the rest of the
Yeah,
stuff
the
is a
rest
very
of it
valid point, yes.
The rest of it would be a necessity if we're going to expand that so we could bring in bigger planes and be able to offer more services.
And the big one is the new hangars. How many, 500,000, how many hangars does that build?
That'll probably get you an 8 or 10 nested T hangar, similar to the building that's out there now, on the north side of the tower, north side of the facility.
It's about 8 more planes, 10 more
Yeah, probably 8 or
planes.
10 more planes.
What's the rent on one a month?
$40 a month for a T hanger.
Okay. So it's more of a courtesy or,
You don't cash flow it. If you could cash flow it, everybody'd be building them right now. I mean, that's why I said everybody's wanting those. You can subsidize it, and I don't know what the percentage is or how much you can do, but it's one of those projects that you can recoup some of the costs on through that.
it takes a while.
But you can't make it cash flow. At least I haven't seen anybody do it yet. Let's say it that
Yeah.
way.
And again, I think the project is worthy. It just, the approach we take, because there's no way that we're gonna take the whole thing. And to me, putting in the big runway and then not having the accessories, it's a lot easier to go the other way.
And I also feel if there were a new hospital on that side, or even proposed, maybe we would need to think about a runway as our number one priority in that list. And since that, I don't think is even in the picture anymore, that maybe some of those bottom things are
And that's what the discussion was 5-6 years ago, was literally we could not get that master plan done fast enough for the hospital, so they could, because they already doing preliminary design on that. And theoretically, assuming with the time frame of environmental assessment and land acquisition, the runway, we couldn't go fast enough.
Yeah.
We were
I remember.
behind the 8 ball on trying to get that thing open for the hospital. So yes, some things have changed.
If-
Larry, how much money do we have reserved in our part of the 10%? How much, what kind
That's
of?
one of the things we cleaned out at budget time, so we could do 18th Street and downtown. So
Okay.
as of now, we basically don't have any, right? Other than enough to pay for the overlay that's been done out there now, our 10% match on the work is now nearing completion. So that's an issue to face, as we come around in the budget year. But we knowingly, you'll recall that there be a lot of lines on our capital improvement plan to do those two projects. And whether we'll have any money to put back out of that, if we get lucky on some bids, maybe we will, but we don't know that.
It doesn't take much to confuse me, but with that, the 5.5 with the runway, would the 550,000 that we would have built up, would that be our 10% of the 5.5?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't think so,
It
but I
would
want to
be
make
an
sure.
addition- Yeah. Yeah, you'd have basically FAA would give you 10 or 90% of the cost, whether it's 6 million or 5.5 or whatever it be. That's our estimate right now. They would give you 90%. So let's say they give you 5 million. They would give you 550,000 first from what you already have. They'd clean that out, and then the other 4.5 million or whatever would come from their discretionary.
Okay.
So, if, for instance, let's say we're gonna build it next summer, they'd wipe it out, do discretionary, and then come next October, you'd have 150 put back in. Sorry,
So-
150
so the-
put back in.
So the city would need to come up with 550, 600,000.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I
Um,
appreciate that.
Yeah, one of the things, and KDOT and FAA money don't mix. They, for whatever reason, they don't mix. There's some new leadership in KDOT Aviation early this spring. And one of the things I've talked to him about, he was asking me point blank, kind of at a conference, kind of off the record, what can I do to make things better? And I said, what'd be nice is if we could use KDOT funding. KDOT gets $5 million a year out of their entire budget. FAA has, I don't know what they give to Kansas, but it's 200 million or whatever it is. So it's small potatoes. I said, if you could give the communities 5% matches so that the communities will have to come fire, I said, you would see a lot more activity. So I'm kind of working that angle, just what you're talking is, and I think everybody agrees, the local community needs to have some skin in the game. Okay, it can't be 100%, hey, here's a runway for free for you.
Sure,
I think
sure.
everybody wants the local community to have to put up a little bit, to have some stake in it, and show that they're interested. But the less that we can get it down to, the better.
So that, off the record, recommendation was basically the KDOT and the city, or KDOT and the municipality could split the 10%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because right now you can't use KDOT funds as part of a match to get FAA
Sure.
funds. And I said that would be a good idea and I don't know if it's a legal issue or a policy issue or why it's that way, but it's that way.
I'm sure there's a very good
I'm
reason.
sure there is too.
Hmm?
We get one more slide, just go to my last slide. So really, we're not here to make any decisions today. Again, I just want to inform you, kind of may update you where we're at. Again, evaluate your feedback. But we want to continue, at least my job is here to help you to continue to leverage that money to the maximum extent possible. If you choose not to pursue grant projects like this year, we decide not to go after a KDOT grant, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But we're going to try to continue to find those opportunities and bring them here and leverage those. We will need to make a decision on that runway in the next year or so. Okay. Probably the next decision time will be probably next summer, before the September deadline for KDOT, because we'll probably want to know if we want to submit on KDOT or not. And that's kind of when we'll probably start looking at it, looking to make an official which way are we going type decision.
But again, we could also then choose to go to accessories and start working on them,
Yeah.
and then come back to the runway.
Yeah, you can always juggle it around.
Either
I
way.
know that FAA is slow when I say we juggle and we bump priorities. I mean, it's a slow process, but yes. And we do need to plan a project again, beginning about a year from now, but roughly 18. And I say need as in we would lose 100,000. I'm not saying we have to do it, but I'm saying from an airport control perspective, I'm thinking you should try to do it to maximize your funding.
Well, for $10,000, you get 100,000, so, I mean, that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you had some of those secondary auxiliary things that would fit.
Yeah, we could do any one of those really and utilize it. Again, the runway lights would be 300, so it'd be probably about a $30,000
Yeah.
local match or whatever it would be at the time. So.
Okay.
I do think it's important that we continue to improve our airport. And if we can't take on the big project, then we we need to continue improvements, so you bet.
And I would say it is valuable to put in, if you can in your budget, the $15,000 a year to the airport coffers. So that, and basically that is your 10% match. So that theoretically, when the time comes, 2 years from now, and we're, hey, we'd like to do whatever the project is, and we need 300,000, but oh, by the way, it's not a budget issue for you, you've already given it to them in a little bit each year, it's already there. So I will campaign for that, it does make a very nice thing. Now, I know how budgets go, and I know how that all works too, so it makes it sometimes hard to do on a yearly basis, but I would say that that's always a nice benefit to have. And we're gonna continue to grow the airport. Our goal is to make it 100% self-sustaining. There is that nice piece of ground where the hospital is looking at right on the highway. That could be a nice location for business, whatever we want to talk about, whether it's a large scale or small scale or commercial or industrial, whatever. So working with Cloud Corp to try and continue to keep that as a viable alternative, that basically would lease the ground to said business, and the airport would then generate revenue, better revenue than if it was crops, basically, than it is now. So stuff like that we're going to continue to try and do and maximize the airport as much as we can. So. And that's all I've really prepared. I'm happy to entertain any other questions. Again, Steve, did you want to add? Yeah, okay.
Those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Richard, Chairman of the Airport Advisory Board. On behalf of the Airport Advisory Board, I want to thank Larry and the City Commission for all the support you've given the airport over the last several years. You can see that we've had several pretty good sized projects that you have supported, and we hope that continues in the future. I also like to thank Ron and his crew out there. I don't know how many acres you mow out there, Ron, but you do a great job with your crew, and the airport always looks nice in the summertime. And I also like to thank Brad. He worked with us on the master plan, and if you ever read it, there was a lot of work that went into it. I think it's a good product, and Brad's been really great to work with. And he answers his phone, his emails, and he shows up to meetings. Yeah, so I would encourage the, there's, I don't know how many programs you get out there where if you put up 10%, the government will put up the other 90%. But I would encourage you on your capital improvement program to look at putting up that $15,000, banking it away each year, so when we do have a valid project that we want to fund, that we don't have to scramble for the money. As I fly around the country, I do quite a bit of cross-country flying. I go to Oshkosh and a couple other places. And what I find is if you have a thriving airport, you usually got a thriving community. They seem to go hand in hand. So I would encourage you to keep supporting the airport, and capital improvement program, keep funding that. Thank you.
Steve, 15 to 20 planes out there now. What other kinds of activities are going on out there with those pilots that, are they all just recreational, or are there?
Yeah, I think most of them are. If you,
What if I needed a quick trip to Kansas City? Is there anybody out there I could hire?
there's no commercial charter service available.
So that, okay.
Yeah, but I think one avenue that might be a possibility, and I don't know if Brian would have some opinions on it or not, but the ag spraying in the last several years has really picked up. It seems like every bug in the world has found milo and soybeans and corn, and so the crop spraying is really a big issue. And I know he brings some of his brothers in to help him spray, but I think that is one area that may be a possibility that we could look at of helping ag to improve maybe the facilities for handling spray planes. I stopped in Iowa on the way to Oshkosh, and they actually had a tanker truck out there servicing spray planes. And they were people come in spraying, because the spray period for fungicide on corn is very short. And if you don't get it done in that period of time, it doesn't get done. So I think that's a possibility that the ag end it would be, I think Farmway would be more than happy to talk to you folks about doing something that would improve that capability. So.
Thanks.
While we're here, I do want to compliment both Brad and Steve. Brad and his firm have really been extremely dependable and useful to us, not only on all the work we took on this airport planning, but also there have been times we called on them very short notice for some help with some quick work that we needed for economic development. proposals and that sort of thing, and they're always just right there, so they're very good to deal with all the time, and they're just down the road in Manhattan, whenever we need them. Steve's been a very active chair of the Airport Advisory Board, and that board meets regularly, and they're a bunch of real enthusiasts, so it's all very much appreciated, and it's with their partnership that we've gotten as far as we have.
Nice presentation. Appreciate it.
That was informative.
You bet.
We'll forward the
Yeah.
PowerPoint to all of you.
Well, you know, because Lyle and I were both involved with the master plan, and I knew that the other commissioners had not been really seen too much of that yet. And this was a good refresher course just for Lyle and I.
Like I said, and the biggest thing that I want to just take away is it's a very positive area. It's a positive place. It's a positive community. It's not just a rich man's playground where 10 or 15 guys use it. There is a lot more activity that goes out there. And it's not just a complete drain when we're talking the projects that have been done in the past 5 or 6 years and what we're talking about doing. We're getting major grant funding for it. So, you know, they are good things. Again, if we were spending 100% local, I understand we probably wouldn't be doing that much at all. So, so there's a lot of positives out there. So we appreciate the support of the airport.
If we were to put a new runway in farther to the east, would that clear the space to put in a pond at the dam area?
No comment.
Oh, that's right. If we moved it over, maybe that would take care of
40
oh,
feet, I
gosh.
think, so.
Yeah. Worth a shot. Appreciate it, Brian.
Yeah, well,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stacy reminds me that the entire airport master plan is on our website on the airport staff. Look up chapter 2.
Here it is.
That's
Yeah, I wasn't exaggerating too much.
Yeah, you want to know about the airport.
Okay. Moving on to manager's report.
Could I see the picture from this morning, please? I sent you a picture of the demolition. That. Okay. Maybe you drop the lights a little bit. Thank you. Okay, this is what the old detail shop or the viaduct looked like this morning. So it's down, and I don't know if they've made any progress in hauling it away, but yesterday it was still standing in the morning. This morning's what it looked like. So definitely progress there. The only other thing I already had to mention to you, I think I've already notified you, but we did receive the Leadership Kansas grant in the amount of $25,000 that will fund 40 scholarships for elected officials and administrators, senior people from the community to go to leadership training for 2.5 days each in Wichita. The entity sending them will be responsible for their room and board, but the cost of the training will be paid by this grant. Stacy, Amber, and Kim Reynolds from the college are going down next week to their kickoff meeting. When they come back from that, we'll start getting organized about who's going to go when. We want to give first preference to elected officials from the school district and the college and the city, because the three entities all joined together to make this application. I think that's probably why we got the grant. So after we've made room for elected officials, then we'll start figuring out whose manager level people are going to be going, and hopefully it's something we'll all benefit from. It's going to be February and March of next year. There are 3 possible dates, and we'll get back to you on that again. Probably next meeting will be a little more organized with some of the details that we now have. Other than that, unless you have anything for me.
Staff comments?
I just wanted to show you the pictures of the new bleachers out to the sports complex. They've been completed and all put up. Finally got all the parts for them, so. And them are the ones that Brant Hutchison raised the money for. I believe the bleacher costs themselves was like $25,500 somewhere in there, and there's 2 of them. So, there's the other one. So, looks
How many,
nice out there.
how many would that seat, do you know?
I don't know.
Probably depends on how cozy you want to be.
It's 18 foot long,
Yeah.
so.
see the,
Wow.
So, yeah, I think they'll see a lot more than what we had out there, so
Well, that's good, that's good.
they'll look nice. And I
now with
think
the,
he's actually raising money for some more for the Pee Wee fields right
Well,
now. He's
good.
selling banners for out there that we can hang on the fence and
Good.
so he can raise some more money, so.
were the old ones wooden or were they aluminum?
They are, they got wooden planks on metal frames.
Yeah.
Splinter heaven.
We tried to keep them painted, and I started putting treated lumber on there, and there's not enough bracing for treated lumber, so I went back to regular lumber, and they're more warped than anything. What I'm gonna do is, I got one of them I wanna put up at Coley Field in the park, and then maybe one over to, Razor Field. And the old ones. And then, after that, the rodeo, I think we got them from NCK Rodeo, that's got their initials on the back of them. They're asking about them, so probably end up giving them back to them.
Sell it to 'em.
Sell them to them? Okay.
For dollar back.
Free admission to the rodeo for commissioners and city staff.
I get free tickets every year and I never.
So
Ah.
Jim and Amber with beer.
Not only do we get a lot of use out of our camera, but other places get use out of our camera too. Clyde just the other day called and wanted us to camera something that they needed done for the Corps of Engineers. It was a storm drain underneath their dike. So Paul went over there and used the camera and got what they needed. So
Good.
it's just it's a good tool for us and surrounding communities. So.
Agree. Okay.
Have we had a lot of questions about the flags along 11th Street and all the
Oh, yeah.
paint markings? I mean, that's our
Not really.
GP, that's our company that's doing the
GPS.
GPS markings?
No.
Oh,
They were supposed to come in earlier this week, but he called me and said it's probably gonna be either later this week, Thursday or Friday, tomorrow or the next day, or Monday.
I just
Those
assumed-
flags are they're actually putting fiber optic in the ground, and they're gonna be bored along there.
A lot of fiber optic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
That's good.
companies are putting it in?
I think it's AT&T, but I don't know what the name of the contractor doing it. So,
okay.
they usually
fine.
send us
We're gonna
plans
get
of
better
everything
internet
they do.
service?
What's that?
We're gonna get better internet service?
So we're told.
Well, like down on Fifth Street from Broadway and Fifth going east down to Kansas, that just goes down to serve co-op elevator. And I don't know if they're just doing that to serve different entities or what. I know some of it went down the highway, they did some out to the motel out there, the Holiday Inn, and they're just putting it in different areas.
We haven't received any plan from AT&T as far as what they're doing for the community. And Cunningham Cable also runs a lot of fiber through the community. They probably have more in town, but nobody really gives us a map.
I mean, as far as them putting it in, they actually have to deal more with what, KDOT and,
When crossing the highway, they gotta get a KDOT permit.
okay, but now say they're out there down by Fifth Street, do they have to notify the city at all or do they just do it?
They, actually, they sent, Patty with AT&T, she's the best at it, cause she sends me actual plans of what they're doing, and I actually forward them to Jeremy if we got any problems. I think 18th Street, when they put it in up there, they put some in up there, I got a hold of them, and I said, this ain't gonna work, cause we're gonna be redoing the street, we need to keep it back and keep some depth on it and stuff like that. Changed their plans a little bit, and they had some plans, they come in, they was gonna run it behind the fence out there at the airport, and told them they couldn't do that unless they come to the commission and got easements and all that, so they rerouted it and brought it in a different way.
Okay, so they do work with you?
AT&T does, Cunningham, they just kinda put it in, I mean, I think we got franchises with all of them, so. But AT&T's are really the best ones that work with. They actually draw plans and show you what they're doing.
Hey, Ron, did we get a notification back from Shortstop on fixing the sidewalk?
Yes, they got it done. They poured it this morning.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually,
Respond very promptly.
yes, they
Okay.
did. They poured a sidewalk this morning, and they're putting boards up on the north side of the sidewalk so people can't drive across it no more, and they put signs up there. So that'll keep people out from driving on it. That was their plan, so, yes, they did respond.
I should have went that way.
Well, they just poured it this morning. They come in yesterday, tore it out and formed it.
I saw them working on it the other day, so I was kinda
Cool.
curious.
Good.
Last time I told you about the league supper, and it's on the 1st, and I have to let them know by, I think, the 27th, if anybody wants to go. That's on a Tuesday night,
It's on November 1st.
November 1st,
Where was it?
and
in
it'll
Raleigh?
be here
Oh, here.
Let's
in
hear.
this room.
November 1st?
Is that the legislative, the time they talk about legislative issues?
They
or-
probably will. I looked at the list of who's attending so far. Elaine's coming, and I think some other legislators. Their executive director comes and tells what the league's doing and things like that.
That's usually has a lot to do with legislative.
Yeah. And November, that's a what, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
So if you want to go, I do need to RSVP. They haven't got with me on that, but it seems like it's in the 6 o'clock range, and we have a meal
Where's it at?
here,
Oh, here, when you say here.
Is it in this room or will it be in that?
this room.
And you said that's the League of?
It's called, League Supper. And they have 4 of them around the state every year. So, are you all planning?
Yeah, count me in.
Okay.
Count me in.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay. And then another banquet would be that Thursday of that week is the NCRPC, what do they call it? I guess they just call it annual banquet. It's gonna be in Abilene at the Eisenhower Library, and I noticed that they're gonna have somebody from the National Bio Facility from Kansas State to speak. And that starts at 5:15 for social hour, 6 PM for dinner, and I have to RSVP on that one as well. So,
It's a pretty interesting project to hear about. We had either that speaker or someone else from his office came up and spoke for a few months about quite a facility we're
What is
Pass on
NCRCT?
that one.
North Central Regional Planning Commission.
Okay,
Out of
sure,
Boyd.
sure, sure.
Is that the one that Deb Peters works with?
She used to, Deb Oldie.
Jeff Peters does, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know who she is then.
Yes.
So, that one I have to have in by the 27th. You can, if you don't know right now, you can let me know next week, but I will need to do that.
Commissioner, speaking of fiber optics, a few weeks ago, a contractor put fiber optics in our building for our new phone system and our next generation 911. Monday, AT&T actually started installing phone equipment. They were back today, they'll be back tomorrow, and believe it or not, they're coming Sunday.
I can't get them to come on Sunday.
You're not.
Surprised
may not
me
have
today
enough
when they
standing
said they were
tickets,
coming
Dan.
on Sunday, so I
Well,
don't
and I
know.
don't carry a gun with me, so.
Yeah, it's everyone. Amber, nothing? Any more entertaining pictures that you'd like to share?
That's just going there, we don't need to go, Chuck.
At this time, I would like to have an executive session for confidential business data, inviting City Manager Yuri and anyone else.
No.
That would be it.
He's out of town this week, but I just meet for, probably 15 minutes.
For a period of 15 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay? All right. Well, I don't know if adjourn or leave
We
for
got-
an executive business session with Mr. Yuri. Something out. Yeah, somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you have to say like no action was taken.
No action was taken in the executive session. At this time, I'd like to leave for an executive session, inviting City Manager Yuri for the preliminary discussion of acquisition of real estate. And 10 minutes, inviting anyone else.
Second.
solely with Mr. Uri. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. No action was taken. This time I'd like to leave for an executive session, inviting Mr. Uri for discussion of non-elected personnel. All those in favor say aye.
How long?
How many minutes?
15 minutes.
Go 15 minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I guess. Not a vote for the motion.
I seconded it.
An executive session. At
A little bit of heartburn, huh?
At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move.
Moved by Commissioner Parker, seconded by Commissioner Pounds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.